But I don't know why it's so curly, and then I can well, I don't though. You know, I just I do. I always do. Yeah. That's why I wear a hat all the time. I do too. Because you've never seen me without a hat. I know. No, I've had someone just when I came to talk about straighten it. So you have a thing around? Not to. Because sometimes I do. Because sometimes you can straight my get some long hours and straight. Hi. How are you? I'm sliding back here. I had to explain the whole thing. But it was hilarious how the reversion was thank you. It's not crowded to see between us. It's not crowded to see between us. Oh, yeah.
That's easy. Yeah.
Good, how are you? Good to see you.
Good. Well, let's see. Oh my God, it wasn't working.
We didn't do it last night. Middle school.
Well, I was thinking that.
This year.
Also, it's
56. Yeah. I may try to put you on between camp conventions. Yes.
Anyone public participation?
Right after school and
Public participation.
did you get
If you want to speak. Okay. And that's
on Saturday to have workshops? Came through school. No, it should have been one of the last couple of weeks. Okay, look on the website, but at the end.
Yeah.
Or you can phone
And I
the
asked
website.
her.
Yeah, we're still, I would wait for another couple of days, we're just trying to solidify.
No, I understand.
Why do you know? So which no word from it's all about the interesting, right? I just don't know. When I saw that.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know you wanted me to do that.
No.
You didn't teach me that part.
Ready? I call the meeting to order. Very good, pledge of allegiance. Thank you. Thank you. David, can you start with the roll call?
Sure. Alberts,
Here.
Cooper, Ferguson,
Here.
Foley,
Here.
Janelli, Johnston,
Here.
Karat,
Is out.
so. I'm here. Molinaro,
Here?
Petrofesso,
He's out. He's over there.
and Robinson.
Here.
Thank you. We have any recognitions tonight, Dr. Sal? All right.
Recognizing the audience, thank you for all coming.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for all the people watching us. Hi, Deb. We know there's one person watching us. That would be Sal's admin. All righty. Public participation. The board welcomes public participation and asks that speakers please limit their comments to 3 minutes. Speakers may offer objective comments of school operations and programs that concern them. The board will not permit any expression of personal complaints or defamatory comments about Board of Education personnel and/or students, nor against any person connected with the Danbury Public School System. I only have one name that signed up to speak.
No.
Mr. Patel, and I saw you there, so I heard you look.
Thank you.
Please come in, sir.
You're from ACE, and come on, sit down. Rep, you represent from ACE?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, just
State your digits.
Dr. Glasswell, thank you. It's his other job. He's deputy superintendent and he's
Chairman of the chairs.
the chairman of the chairs. There you go. Thank you. Okay, we're moving along. Mr. Patel, go ahead, please.
Thank you, members of the board, Dr. Sal, and Dr. Glass. I come to you today just following up on what we started in the Governance Council. I'm no longer on the board of the Governance Council since my kids have graduated in a long time. But I am now the chair of the New Hatters Foundation, which you're hopefully keenly aware of. We have started in June with the process of establishing ourselves as a nonprofit, getting the IRS authorization as a 501c3. So we've made significant progress along the way. And today I want to kind of inform you of our first charitable fundraising event that we're looking to hold in March, on Friday, the 11th of March. And I wanted to pass out some information to you and hopefully get the members of the board as well as the community at large involved in helping to support the foundation and all of our plans to support the high school directly, as our mission. So with that, I wanted to kind of pass out some things. I want to highlight, there's a flyer that we've developed. We've already began selling tickets to this event, and already, actually within a day's worth of sales, we have about 4 tables totally occupied. So certainly going well. I'd like for you to use that as reference and maybe post it in the various places that you might have access to, and maybe garner some interest for folks to attend this event. We're also looking to reach out to the Danbury community. And we are, various members of our board and also I'll be talking to the Governance Council tomorrow to solicit their help in perhaps getting some silent auction items and perhaps sponsorships for local businesses to help with the foundation as well. So there are other flyers that solicit those exact things that are specifically purposed to do that. But I wanted to kind of give you some insight into the happenings of the Hatters Foundation and as we get started in our first event that we're going to be holding, and hopefully we'll raise some money and start funding some needs for that.
Would it be helpful if the board donated one snow day? You think you might get something?
I think students might, and parents might want to buy into that, so.
You could
Right.
start.
Be happy to answer any questions, and I wanted to take a minute or two here to provide that background. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, you're welcome, sir. All right, because there are a lot of people that arrived late, I'm going to ask by row. Anyone else in the first row, anyone in the first row that would like to speak? Okay, second row? No? Third? Fourth? Is there anyone else here that would like to speak besides people sitting around this table? Okay. There you go. Moving right along. Consent calendar, Dave. I'm new to this thing, so.
That's
What
okay.
goes next?
That the Board of Education approve the items on the consent calendar, Exhibit 16-12 through 16-17 as recommended.
Is there a second? That's okay. Seconded by Patrick, okay. And any questions, any discussions? Seeing none, I'll try your minds, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, this is for a woman. I cannot take one, pass it, and talk at the same time. Okay, here we go, thank you. Pardon my ignorance, thank you. Alrighty. I would like to mention that Ms. Dennison, has been teaching French for us for 42 years, is retiring now. I thank her very much publicly for her time and her effort. Kind of sad that she won't be there, because ever since I've known that program started. Okay, moving along, I'm going to put my mail in her mouth. Is that on now? Okay, I'm not repeating anything that I've said. You can just all guess. Okay. Employee representatives. Okay, this is where we're going to acknowledge that in our ordinance tonight we have Great Plains School.
Stand and come up.
Come on up.
Well, they're so shy.
No, they're not the teachers. Come on. He's just standing in the middle of the room.
Last check photo. Bill, you have your representative. Keisha, she'll want to report.
Do hair and makeup first or anything?
Okay, I need the microphone on, the one thing that I couldn't turn on. It's down here. The whole time? Just put it down?
No, just push the block.
Oh, very sophisticated here at people.
Mary Lou, and I'm a fifth grade teacher at Great Plain Elementary School, and we are the great teachers from Great Plain Elementary. And of course, our social worker, right? And Ms. Keisha Smith, our principal, wanted to be here today, but she couldn't, so she asked me to speak on her behalf. And she wanted to say that Great Plain has 363 students. We have a K-5 bilingual program, and the children who arrive here from their countries are in this program. And if we have room, they can stay there. If there is no room, then they have to go to their home school. Great Plain houses 2 self-contained special education classes. These are students that need special instruction in academics and a specialized program for their behavior. We have a character education program, which we love. We've been doing that for many years. And we now are identified as a Start with Hello School, which is a Sandy Hook initiative to reduce social isolation and include others. We do have a program from February 8th through February 12th, and we'll have a lot of activities in the school, and we're hoping that the mayor will be here, will come and join us. As you know, we have a very, very active PTO, and the school and the parents work together to provide educational experiences, such as our field trips to New York City, to the museums, and we bring in people for cultural events. Due to all the programs and challenges at Great Plain, we are happy to understand that the numbers, class size, need to remain the same. Thank you.
Just say that really quickly, that was good.
That's the point, right?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
But before you go, can I ask you a question?
Well, yes, please, thank you.
We were just talking at the budget meeting, trying to define, how difficult and the pressures and the challenges teachers have when they have limited resources. You guys teach every day, and I try to articulate that. But in class sizes is an issue. We're up to 26, 27. The 18 and 19s do not happen. And in your case, you have a lot of integration of special students, so the differentiation is that much more difficult. But, just anybody wants just a few minutes on the pressures of that? I mean, I think the board might like to hear how difficult it is working and the kind of work that you have to do, instead of me trying to talk for you.
Hello.
Wow.
Just as a
That was
social
almost
worker.
reversed, but very good.
My name is Melissa Eckberg. I'm the social worker over at Great Plain. And I see on a daily basis what the teachers themselves, especially with those class sizes, struggle with, trying to teach the kids with all the new curriculum, but also the increase in the social and emotional piece that we're seeing in our school, and I believe in other schools as well. So there definitely are limited resources, and managing my position as a social worker and then also assisting the teachers, it's very, very, it's hard. It's hard for the kids, I think, to get everything that they need.
Thank you. Does anybody have any question? Any member of the board would like to ask a question? Any of the teachers?
So of the teachers in the group, what is your current student-to-teacher ratio? Are you guys running 22, 24, 27? What are you running?
On average,
22? Okay.
Did you say 25 in some of the
22 to 25.
All right. All right. Okay, we've stopped to.
I was just going to ask too, that now is your expectation for a lot of growth coming up through? Are you guys seeing a lot of kindergarten, that getting larger and more students coming up as you go now?
well, our kindergarten classes are actually a little bit smaller this year, but that's unusual.
Okay.
Usually they're 22, 24.
We had been about 700 at the grade level. We are now at 900.
Right.
At K1 and 2, we're about 900, and that's the way it's moving through. So we expect it to stay about the same sustainable.
Right.
There's some questions.
In the past 2 years, last year I had 22 kids. Out of the 22, 15 of them were ELL kids. And I find it every year the number seems to be growing, and every year I find it very hard to modify my lessons in the curriculum as the curriculum gets more rigorous. And it's definitely an obstacle in my
If I could add to that, Great Plain has some of the lowest numbers, and this was because folks who were at the finance committee heard us talk about the sister school arrangement. Keisha called this summer and said I could take a lot more kindergarten kids because her numbers were lower. But now, by bringing in other students from the schools, the numbers are starting to get up to that 22 to 25 level. And with the ELL population, the SPED population program that we have there as well.
Yes, Richard.
With regard to the challenges that you just mentioned, the increased population, special ed, are these challenges, who's made aware of the challenges? How do you get your frustrations across? Not necessarily to the administration, I know that's your direct line, but is it a discussion with parents? Are they made aware of it, or outside the community? The reason I'm asking, because this follows directly on a finance meeting that we had, is that we're trying to do something. I think this is a great segue into some of the thought processes that we had in terms of the presentation. Do you feel that your challenges, if more people knew about it, would have an understanding of what the problems are and maybe do something about it, or at least have an understanding of what you're going through, as opposed to just discussing with the board people and not the staff?
I think so. I think what Melissa had mentioned about the home environment and then the language barrier with parents a lot of times comes into play in trying to communicate with home as well. I mean, as far as who we contact within school, is each other and relying on each other for resources.
Gotcha.
How many live in town? 6% of our people live in town, just curious. They're consumers in
The reason I asked the question is I said we had a meeting just earlier prior to the board meeting, and to do the finance meeting, and the conversation dealt around there was not enough information disseminated to the public relative to the hardships that the school personnel, teachers, social workers, administrators could go through. You do an excellent job, and it's assumed you do an excellent job, and you have everything you need. And nobody understands the burden that you carry and that the increase that it has each year. So, thank you.
And what your average parent doesn't understand differentiation, and how you have to do that, and what that process means in a multi-language classroom. So we understand it, and while you're standing here, I want to say thank you. Okay, thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you. Yes.
Just one question, since you have a very active PTO, is there any discussion when we get around budget time about the budget to those parents? Is there information carried from the PTO back to the parents? Okay.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Thanks for coming.
You did a good job.
Just send this to Keisha so you know so there's
All right. Okay, I'm going to ask all of the board members to make sure your microphones on. They can just sit on, okay? If you want to push lock, it stays on. Got it? All right. No, you can't whisper though, that's the whole thing. Okay. Okay. And maybe, Kathy, if you could like to come to the meeting back to the meeting. That's all. See if they'll come back to the meeting. Okay. They're not. All right, we're going to go right into action items. No, we're not. Oh my God, we're just ignoring this poor student representative. I'm very sorry. Is there, from Danbury High School, do I have representation? Yes, would you introduce yourselves, ladies, please? Lock, push lock. Remember I said everybody at the table, push lock.
Okay, so I'm Sophia Papaleo. I'm the BOE president and Mrs. Renee Cunningham, she's the BOE treasurer.
And speak into the microphone, that's the other key. Okay.
So for Martin Luther King Day and Black History Month, we had cultural awareness assembly for juniors and seniors, and we had
had Zuzu African acrobats come in to teach like the different cultures from Africa. Also for Black History Month, we had Mr. Obath ask student assembly for one of the classes regarding Martin Luther King and his legacies. Tomorrow night we will have Movement to Music, which is the speech arts class, and also DHS Productions will, for the first time ever, perform their first opening number from In the Heights, which is in May. On February 4th, report cards will be distributed. Sometime in February, which we will let the board know, we'll have another lockdown drill during the lunch period. Over half the year is now completed as we start the second semester.
This is a good thing. Thank you. Now we have our new oh, excuse me, we have a question for the high school, pardon me.
What time is the movement to music tomorrow night?
Movement to Music starts at 7.
At 7?
At 7.
And this is the first year that Michael's going to do it in replacing Cindy, correct?
Yes, and it should be over around 8:30.
Great. It's always a phenomenal success. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
You're Stephanie?
Yeah. New students were interviewed on Saturday, January 9th, and 11 new students have been accepted to ACE. Our present enrollment is 100 students. Students at ACE will begin the after-school program at Henrietta Tech on January 28th. Students interested had to apply, write an essay, create a resume, and be passing 6 of 7 classes in order to be considered. Presently, there are 70 students, including myself, that will be participating in either an introduction to culinary arts or an introduction to certified nurses assistant training. All students who successfully complete the 68-hour course will also receive a half credit in applied arts that meets a high school graduation requirement. ACE is very pleased to welcome our new social worker, DJ Jimenez. DJ is already making a positive difference with students at ACE, and he is a great addition to our school. The additional support that he is providing is helping students and their families greatly.
Excellent. Yes, Heather.
One other comment to the board members, and more so to the current board members, if they haven't attended before. The Movement to Music is an outstanding presentation done by the speech arts class. It's incredible. These kids have to create their own dance movements, their own theme, do their own music. It's a phenomenal, it's just a great way to do away with an inhibition that you have. It gives you a tremendous amount of self-confidence. It's very well, if you have the time, worth seeing. I can speak with firsthand, was a number of years ago. I wanted to know what speech arts was all about, so I sucked it into attending that. And I was on stage doing Movement to Music as a tap dancer and singing dance with a bunch of the students. So it's just an incredible experience, right, how a person could grow. So it's well worth an evening's entertainment.
Thank you. It is happening. Now it's your turn now.
Okay, so I actually came from a statewide student advisory council meeting today, which was very convenient, so everything is still fresh in my mind. Just a general update on what the council is working on now. This is our first meeting in about 6 weeks, so we met with the Commissioner on Education today, and we have split up into about 3 committees, and we're working on 3 different major areas. So one committee is working on health and wellness reform, specifically how we educate our students in the high schools. I think that's something we do very well at Danbury High School. We have a great health educational program, but that's something that might not necessarily be the case in all high schools across the state. So we are currently working to fix that, and if we can, or brainstorming that to fixing that. We also are talking about another group, not my group, is discussing the capstone project and 12th grade reform. So a lot of this follows along with the 21 to 25 graduation requirement increase. And so if in the event the capstone project becomes required and students have to implement this into their, at least the means they have to graduate, we're trying to find ways to make it easier for all schools to implement the project. For a school like Danbury High School with 3,000 students and a limited number of administrators, administering a capstone project might be a lot more difficult than it would be at a school with less students and more attention with administrators. So there are ways to work around that, but we're hoping to develop a system that allows people to go out to the community and take advantage of a range of internship opportunities, as well as out-of-classroom learning experiences that would be associated with the capstone project. And then the final committee is my committee, and we are focused on equity. We want to see more equity amongst all school districts in the state, specifically financial equity. One of our major concerns, however, is not necessarily in the typical equity that we think of. And we want to start reshaping the way the statewide Board of Education considers students and considers school-wide performance. A lot of times we place very heavy emphasis on statistics when we look at schools, especially from an administrative perspective. We like to look at the number of kids who have been suspended or the number of kids who are getting a certain number of points on a type of exam. But a lot of times I think that it goes so easily forgotten that students are also people. And that the reason why perhaps a school isn't getting this mark on an exam, it's very high up here versus another school that might be getting lower marks, that can be due to a number of different reasons and not necessarily the job of the administration. So we're trying to provide a new perspective and a new explanation as to why students succeed, and we're trying to move away from that numbers-based argument. Of course, it's always going to be there, of course, it's very important, but we would like to start to emphasize how important extracurricular opportunities are for students. A lot of times, certain schools are able to offer more extracurricular activities than others. Some schools have access to more funding than others. And so we want to make sure that all students are getting the same out-of-classroom experience as other schools, because that is in a lot of ways equally important. Students are shaped not only by their experiences within the classroom, but what they do outside of school. In fact, some of the things they do outside of school are most significant to them. So that's what we're working on right now, and Dr. Sal is being very patient with me in terms of educating me on how all this financial stuff works. But we're hoping to get into that this year, and if any of the board members here have some ideas about promoting financial equity amongst different districts, I would love to hear about that, because we'd also like to get different angles and tackle different issues with equity, and I'm sure that they're very, very good.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I know Leslie's posting so on her last name, and I asked if we could just reintroduce yourselves one more time.
I'm Sophia Pompilio. I'm Renee Cunningham. And I'm Stephanie Collins.
Thank you very much. I must have missed that when you started. So, thank you very, very much. All right, moving along, we're going right into our action items because I have a time limit that I can Oh, the presentation. Oh, I'm sorry. No, we're not skipping the presentation on the budget.
Freudian slip. Good night. Thank you for coming.
Just gotta warm up for a second. Don't worry, we're here all night.
No, we're not here all night. Get out. Let's yell at me. She can't.
Coming out of our finance meeting, which finished at 7 o'clock, we began to present Board of Education's budget for 16-17. I think before I just start quickly, I think one of the things that came out of finance is kind of conversation on delivery models and conversations. So I think what you'll see in this presentation, a lot of pieces, a lot of things we use, the council uses, the board, it's a similar format we've used, but in a sense, they're going to be honing that message, that idea, and it's clear that point of really what becomes mission critical, and we see that as we go through the presentation. Start with our mission. Our mission is developing all children the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values which will enable them to live a productive, self-fulfilling life and engage in responsible citizenship in a global society. Next page is the district coherence plan. That in a sense is the organizational goals, adult goals, and student goals all aligning. The board embarked on the coherence plan, I believe now 2 years ago, with Jonathan Costa's Health and Education Connection. The coherence plan had 2 defining goals. Students throughout the district will demonstrate competency in constructive and engaging and viable arguments based on evidence and criteria and reasoning of others. Students throughout the district will demonstrate competency in making sense of problems. Also, the alignment of goals, these are the Board of Education, the coherence plan goals, superintendent goals, deputy superintendent, cabinet goals, and make sense the alignment of all of those. Kind of a guiding statement for our beliefs in budget creation. You'll see those are similar to what we have in years past. Children are our first priority. Education decisions and actions should be based on best practice in the field of education. Partnership between parents, educators, students, and the community is important for student success. All children can learn. High expectations and accountability for all. Educators should provide varying experience and instructional opportunities to meet students' individual needs. Schools should provide safe and productive learning environments based upon mutual respect, trust, and cooperation. The foundation for our budget development this year: maintain core levels of education of all students, meet all legal and contractual requirements, evaluate all open positions to increase efficiency, and design resources for the new 8th grade global studies at Westside Middle School, which is obviously the last year of completing, fully utilizing that building. Budget development: aggressively pursue cost containment and savings measures and health insurance, workers' comp, energy efficiency, and transportation. And also, as an ongoing basis, we continue to refine our budget building process in a sense, make our budget clearer for the general public, because that is in a sense our key audience. Budget considerations: we continue to aggressively pursue all grants. State technology grant, which the board just awarded this past year for $250,000, school security grant for $300,000, and obviously our main grant, our Alliance or ECS funding, which is now at $7.7 million. I mean, reminisce as we get in this process that we didn't focus on the state budget and state funding concerns. The district must work closely with our elected officials to continue to monitor the state budget process. We've already seen cuts in several city and Board of Education grants. Our priority district grant this year was cut by $223,000. City grants for road construction have already been cut. That's what's called the city pilot money. You hear that? That's what a $300,000 grant. It doesn't impact the board, but it still, again, all impacts the city of Danbury. We are also been put on notice by the state concerning our magnet school grant, currently in the current budget year and next year. The grant represents $2.2 million in funding, and that grant has been considered talked about at the state as one for reduction through the years. They've mitigated that through what are called open seats that weren't taken at the state level. We are concerned, Dr. Sutton had a conference call last week about the funding in that program. Key budget elements: enrollment and enrollment growth, as you heard the Great Plains teachers just talk about. 8th grade Westside Middle School Academy, the funding of those teachers to resource that. Our Alliance ECS grant, an overview of our 16-17 budget, and addressing our ongoing special education student needs. One of the key drivers to a lot of our budget developments are enrollment growth. You will see in the chart before you, the current black line is the state pattern or trend. You'll notice the divergence in about the 2004 year, and that curve begins to dip, where I believe right now there's about 7 or 8 school districts in the state that are growing. Right now we're at 10,924 students, and if you look at the next chart, continued growth going out into the future, having us at over 11,000 and finishing up at about 11,150. But this year alone, we've already grown by over 200 students. So unfortunately, it's better being ahead of projections. It's not in a sense a good thing. High school, as the board knows, we're in the middle of a $60 million renovation project in high school. You'll see before you that the 15-16 year, 3,000 students with a projection moving up into 2024 of over 3,400 students. Just amazing growth. Our demographic and population that we're currently servicing. To the left, you'll see our English language learners. The growth going forward there. This year, we are currently over 23% of our students are coming to us as ELL students. Our special education, which is around, I would say, state norms, right now is at 11.7%, and our free and reduced lunch, which is settling up at a 55 to 54% rate. So continue to see a needier population that needs continued more supports. Our Alliance and ECS program, this is a $7.7 million grant. These are just some of the opportunities in a sense this grant has brought to Danbury. The goal of this grant obviously is over 50% of this funding has to be called substantially new. So you see the invitation of all-day kindergarten, our intervention supports in reading, our ESL supports, additional training for administrators and new teacher eval, additional bilingual teachers, math, and the list goes on and on with this grant. This money's really gotten us. One full-time social worker in every elementary school, funding from Head Start, principal at Park Avenue School, department chairs, math specialists. I mean, without this grant, the face of this dish would be very, very different. I think Dr. Sal and Dr. Glass have both agreed. It's been amazing what this money's provided us to do. 16-17 ECS, right now, air quotes, we are projected to receive an increase of $1 million in the biannual budget. I just left the meeting in Hartford today that basically told us to assume flat funding as of right now.
Which means that we get this year's funding level.
Which is
minus the compression value.
Correct, 7.7 million. As Dr. Sells alluded to, inside the grant alone, just issue raises to the current staff that's in it, which is now, I believe, well over 100 FTEs. You're talking about $350,000 just in staff increases. We have to review all our current programs. The draft is due up to the state by about mid-April. And again, the same criteria. We have to see substantially new. If we do get additional money in the program, that would have to meet the 50% criteria. And we get the budget with salary accounts. These are what are known as the 004 to 198 for finance people. Total full-time salaries is budgeted $74 million, which represents a total increase of $3.6 million or 5.1%. Encapsulated inside that is a $2.8 million for all salary increases, that's for certified and non-certified. 6.4 FTE teachers and an administrator for Westside Middle School. That building will be at 600 students for next year. We have not put the assistant principal in the building as of right now, but we do believe it's proven to do that. We are making a projection for retiree savings for $700,000. That's been fairly typical our norm. We have seen an uptick above that number, but not much. That's a fairly reasonable projection in 20. Program improvements, we continue to see growth for elementary schools, so we are budgeting 3 additional FTEs. Also 5.0 FTEs. I wrote all this thing. 5.0 FTEs for reading and math support at our middle school level. An additional special education supervisor across the district based on our current special ed population plus the current teacher evaluation model and supervision. 3.0 FTEs, that's an additional guidance counselor, an ESL teacher, and a science teacher. The current loads with NEAS coming on our counselors, I believe the number is 250, Dr. Sell?
Recommended 250.
Recommended 250. Right now, they're about 300. So in the NEAS evaluation, I believe it's an automatic fail. Or I don't want to say that. No, okay. And we have a additional nurse at Park Avenue and additional speech pathologist at the elementary level. The nurse, Park Avenue, is 600 students. We currently have 2.5 FTEs covering the high school. It's just not enough coverage for the amount of volume going through those offices. Health insurance. One of the bright spots really for the past 3 years has been health insurance. Current benefits are budgeted $27 million, representing an increase of $1.6 million. But our actual renewal on health is 5.5% or $1.2 million. And I can't stress enough just on how amazing the last 3 years have been for health and the amount of contributions between unions, the board, and the work on there with the HSAs. you'll see in there, this is data directly from Cigna. We saw a drop of 45% from all HSA members and much larger use of urgent care centers. Obviously, if you're going to the ER, that could be a $1,500 claim. Or if you're going to an urgent care for a scrape or maybe a couple stitches, that's a $200 claim. So because it's, in a sense, employees' money, they're a little smarter how that's spent. So we definitely see big benefits there. Prescription, generic drugs, same thing. You know, your cost for your non-generics could be $300, generic prescription could be $50. We see a lot more folks seeking out the generic choices. Drug refills, same thing. Rather than just automatically filling prescriptions, just because you have the prescription, folks are waiting, in a sense, and filling those later if they actually need to fill those. The only, in a sense, issue inside the is workers' comp. We continue to see issues with claims, high claims and high settlements in that area. That account is up over $100,000 this year.
Joe, if I could ask you to go back to that slide.
Yeah.
Maybe it's me, but if our claims are off, if our claims are down 20%, we're seeing a drop in ER, how can Cigna justify 5.5?
You're still seeing a lot of growth in what are higher claim. In a sense, 90% of your costs are driven by 10% of your pool. You have a lot of cases where I consider the drug refills, those are small claim. You have a lot of increased hospitalizations, a lot of hip and knees, and a lot of those are $10,000, $50,000 claims. So you're seeing, I'll call them small claim drops, but you're still seeing decent size in your overall pool.
Okay.
Yeah, no, good question, good point.
So the claims that we're receiving are higher dollars?
Yeah, you're seeing.
Okay, but in lesser amounts overall.
Yeah, your smaller maintenance drugs, that sort of stuff, you're seeing a lot more savings there. Your ER visits, but again, like I said,
Is there a particular negotiating group or contract group that's attributed to?
not particularly. I don't think it's necessarily one group in particular. You see, you see a lot of births. I mean, that's normal for your plan. I mean, that could be a $20,000, $30,000 claim. That's just normal course of business. Plus, you have ongoing fees related to your insurance with Cigna and just those sorts of things. So there's some pieces built in. There's also issues in the Affordable Care Act that are in there as well. Health insurance reserves, again, as I said, the last 3 years really have been very good in Danbury for health. The board has actually been able to accrue a $5.7 million health insurance reserve account over the past 3 years. As the board knows, the first year we actually transferred $1.5 million into that fund, plus an additional $1 million. So a $5.7 million health reserves, which is, again, protects both the city and the board against unusual high claims going forward. Additional highlights, obviously we're in year 3 of the teaching administrator's contract, which includes all co-insurance and mandatory HSA. All of our units converted in 2013. We did partner with the city. We continue to look at our dependent audits, in a sense seeking out to make sure the right people are on our plan. Not that we don't have the issue here, but at times there are people that will piggyback. Some districts have had neighbors that get put on health plans, and we can review and make sure the right people are on our plan. Service and fees. Hold on. No, we're actually replacing the system, believe it or not, because there's some issues, interference with something around, I'm not sure what it is. Increase in service and fees, $221,000 or 4.75%. The largest area of the increases are special education tutor population. This is actually general raises to the group. We have added some FTEs there, but thankfully we've kind of gotten that area under control of costs. There's been a lot of containment that we've done with the special ed department. We continue to see additional services in our OT department. Their caseloads are well over where they should be, so we did have to add, actually, the current budget year, another occupational therapist.
Joe, the actual number in that object item is about $3.5 million.
Correct. Tutors are $3.5 million. I believe there's 214 is the current FTE on tutors. And those are one-on-ones, two-on-ones, three-on-ones. Yeah. But as we've said, that provides better educational environment for the child. These could be an outplacement situation, it could cost more money. So in a sense, we feel it's better servicing our kids to keep in the district. Utilities and repair budget represents a small increase of $14,810. The only increase in this area is our early childhood center. We did lease additional space. That's where our pre-K and school readiness program is. That's $10,800. We also have a 3% increase in our current refuse account. Savings and utilities, also another area the board has done a great deal of work in. This is just a projection of current meter readings on our Haystown school. 2013 was kind of before we did the energy upgrades, and 2014 was after, and you'll see and since that's actually kilowatt usage, that probably there represents a savings of $10,000 or $15,000 in usage. The issue is, as even us customers know, Eversource continue to raise the demand charge and the fees on our account. So in a sense, I'd love to cut the accounts, we're seeing just increases in actual fees. So it's a cost avoidance rather than a cost savings, which I gotta say I don't like, but that's kind of just the hand we're dealt. We do negotiate some of our kilowatt rates, but the demand charges come directly from CLP. Transportation costs for 16-17 represents an increase of $346,000 or 2.87%. As the board knows, we are entering our 5th year of our current contract with Student Transportation of America. That contract is a 2.5% increase in cost. We do have an additional cost for transportation, special education transportation. Tuition costs, that is actually an increase, mostly in the overall rates they charge. You know, a private institution that goes up in rates 2-3%, so that in a sense is really the cost of those increases. We continue to see a loss in what's called our E-rate funding. If you guys look at your cell phone bills, you'll see what's called Universal Service Fund money. That money's getting phased out to the board. We actually had we budgeted that account net of the grant money, and obviously we can't cut the telephones. So we have an increase in that to deal with that funding loss. Next year will be one more year of that loss. It's about another $30,000 next year. And our current VOAG program at Region 14, we currently have 12 students in the program right now at $7,500 per student. So we are seeing increased costs since kids are electing going to that lottery. Supply accounts. We did a decrease of $141,000. This is primarily related to fuel costs. The board did lock fuel with the city at $2.03. Although it is obviously higher than the current market, it's locked. In other words, this rate is not going up. I'm comfortable where we sit today. It's a $117,000 decrease in bus fuel and $109,000 in heating costs. As the board knows, also we reclassified the utility accounts. So actually, a couple folks on the city council wanted to see the natural gas and electric accounts divided. So it's actually fairly simple to split those accounts. We've now, at last count, done lighting upgrades in 13 of our 17 buildings. Mostly 6 schools just on LED, just completed. We are increasing utility accounts at Danbury High School, but the reason for this is with the building project and the complexity of it, there's no way to build back the utilities simply with the contract. It's such a widespread use. So we are upping that by about $17,000 next year. And we are increasing supplies to the classrooms, $55,000. We are trying to hover around a $35 per student total for classroom supplies. It's a $54,000 increase, but I mean, you know, it's minuscule based on what the teachers are actually kind of dipping into their own pockets to pay. So I think that is definitely an area we need to continue to invest in. Leasing accounts, we have no new leases going in for next year. The current leases we have is a performance contract with Honeywell that was done in 2008. That expires in 2018. That's a $500,000 contract. Our current copier contract, which we're in the 2nd year, a 4-year contract. And the solar lease for Park Avenue in Ellsworth, which is about $45,000. So those are the totals inside that. Lastly, dues and fees. We have a decrease of $25,000. That is our services to the blind. Currently, there's no one being serviced by that program this year, so that's a budget reduction. That could change going forward, but as of now, there are no students in the program. The board does pay for the services privately. So, all being said, total budget request for 16-17 is $127,467,777, or an increase of 4.59%. The split in the account, the Westside Middle School Academy cost is $657,000, and the operation account is just over $5 million. Obviously, it goes without saying, our challenge is really to maintain financial responsibility of all stakeholders in the city, both students and non-students. What? That's the fire department. Questions, comments?
How about we turn these things off?
Say shut my tongue.
Joe,
What?
were they going to fire sale?
No, it wasn't. It's a very expensive system, to be honest. I've had the engineer in twice now. What they're gonna have to do is they're gonna have to hardwire some mics in, because there's too many frequencies on the channel. And we're in a high frequency zone.
Of course we are.
Of course.
Thank you, Joe. Was there any questions for Joe? I mean, his presentation was very good.
So the later in the meeting, Finance Committee will be making your recommendation to the full board as far as the, to accept the budget as stated, as far as to present to the mayor. What Joe kind of didn't highlight is basically, his work and his team's work as far as getting into this, getting into the dollars and cents. I personally feel that this is the worst case scenario. We do have some savings, possible savings in terms of insurance, as well as busing and transportation. But basically, the bottom line is, it is what it is. The numbers are what they are. 90% of these numbers are fixed or locked. Between salary negotiations and insurance. So, kind of the numbers are what they are. So, thanks, Joe.
Actually, if anyone has a cell phone next to them, I'm also told that creates interference. So they tell them. I got him for Fisher Price. They're the best ones I could find. Dave's playing Minecraft. Oh, now it's Coherence. Also, obviously, process has to go to Mayor Mark's desk for February 15th by charter. So it'll be on the next board agenda for full adoption, move over to the mayor. Obviously, if any folks have questions, feel free to reach out to any of us. Whatever you want to know, we'll tell you.
I think when we talked in the committee meeting, we made it pretty clear that the budget is going to be the budget, and we know it's the number, but for teachers, when this gets reduced, the only place that we can cut, quite frankly, is by increasing class size, which none of us want to do. And we're really challenged this year to keep them reasonable, which I don't think we're reasonable at this point. Given if we have to cut further back, we're going to have some real challenges. Because as I said, we're at 700 students per grade level. We are now coming in 2 or 3 grade levels at the lower primary level at 920 kids. So the numbers are really growing exponentially. And that lens needs to be promoted and talked about, because it does have, you heard the teachers, when you have 24 kids and then 25 kids, if they're all getting along, that's even challenging. But when you have half the kids or 3/4, they don't have the scheme or the background to do the activities and the curriculum, then it becomes that much more challenging. And we don't have the support in school for teachers to work with kids in small groups at the level that we want. The Title I schools have a little more support. We have how many? 6 Title I schools?
Correct.
6 Title I. So they have some more, but the other 7 elementaries are just operating on a normal budget. That's why Joe talked about giving them a per pupil expenditure, and then based on the enrollment, they can have some more resources. But as far as staff, we are really hurting. Joe, good presentation.
Thank you, very nice. Very good.
I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr.
When do we need to present to the mayor?
We asked you to submit it to the mayor by February 15th. So
we have one more.
Your next meeting is February 12th.
Which will be the action item as far as the review. Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. I sort of knew that. Anybody else have any questions for Joe? Seeing none.
Joe, just, what's the timing on the adoption? I didn't know if you mentioned
Has to be on the mayor says by city charter February 15th. So at the next board meeting, you will adopt it and submit it to the mayor. So it'll be an action item on that.
Thank you.
All righty, I think you had said that already. Nobody has anything else. Okay, we're moving right along. Action items.
That the Board of Education authorizes the chairperson of the Board of Education and the superintendent of schools to approve the final plans, contract specifications, and cost estimate for the Danbury High School roof replacement, Phase 1 of the additions and alterations with safety improvements at the Danbury High School complex project, and sign the SCG-042 form and submit it to the state of Connecticut for approval.
Seconded by Michael Ferguson. Any questions? Okay, I saw the plans today.
Back there, actually.
Right there.
They're right there. Very complex. There's 3 stages, there's 2 architects, which I found pretty fascinating. It's very frightening, but they're gonna get it done. And they say that the first phase will be finished when?
The roof will begin possibly 1 phase or 2.
Right, they say maybe it's 2
Could be 2 summers.
2 summers.
They're gonna bid it out, they're gonna have to bid, I believe, in a couple weeks.
Right.
I was at the state with the architects on Wednesday, or no, Tuesday, one of those days. All went well. Actually, this presentation at the state was excellent. Joe Floyd did an amazing job. So all the news there, that's going to be wonderful.
Which the board knows, we have to close down the high school.
Yeah, high school will be offline all summer.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, just get it out in the public, you know, that's sports there, it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah, you actually aren't problems even with athletics next year with busing and everything else. There's a lot of costs that we're still trying to realize actually.
And for graduation, this is here?
No, this year we'll be up at the high school. It's the next year and possibly the following year that we're gonna look at Westcon. Well, Westcon, we're looking at working with them, but that's a lottery system up there.
there's no way, the way they explained it today at that meeting, there's no way they can have kids in, graduation there with all the construction. Because it'll all be out, So, basically. All righty, we have, it was made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions, or, okay, let's go.
That the Board of Education accept the December 2015 operating results analysis general fund in accordance with 16-18.
Seconded by Mrs. Cooper. Any questions or discussions? Mr. Holland?
Just from reading the report, we're in good shape in terms of our budget through the end of the year. Is that correct?
We are. It's complicated, but we are.
I know, but
Well, just 2 seconds. We are seeing an uptick in a lot of long-term sub, which Kim alluded to in the finance committee meeting. We're still trying to quantify that cost. You see a surplus currently in salaries of about $500,000. I think a lot of that's going to get chewed up quickly in the long-term sub. There is a surplus in the line now, but I'm trying to quantify that number at the end of the year. That's definitely, there's a definite issue. Health insurance, we do see a small margin in overall claims, but a couple $100,000 in our plan is not, I mean, that could change overnight.
didn't we develop a pool for the start of this year for long-term subs?
We do, we have $330,000 budget.
No, but I thought a pool of actually qualified.
That's day in, day out subs. Daily subs,
Okay,
we have
yeah.
a pool of about 200
Right.
typically. This is people who need to come in and do 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, sometimes 6 months. So those are the people that we actually repost for and we screen and bring in new people.
Which
Like
contributed
certification requirements.
to the increase or the potential projection?
It's a combination of things. For some reason, this year, we seem to have a lot of maternity leaves, more than we've had in the past. We've got some long-term injuries, folks that have been out for a good chunk of time for surgeries. Part of it is just that it's different from year to year. It really cycles from year to year. So we're trying to get a handle on if there's anything else we can do to try to stem those circumstances.
The system we put in place 2 years ago, whatever it was, where relative to the substitutes, is that, so you have a better inventory, I guess, is that working satisfactorily?
It's working great, and it has actually given us a lot of real information about where people are, what jobs they're taking. So it's helped us to track. It's helped us with payroll immensely because it's created an easier reporting system for us. It's also helped us with screening applicants and getting them processed quickly. What we're about to add on now is the timekeeper function. So for a lot of our folks, like they go out to ELP and do things after school, they're now going to have connected to ASAP a real-time time clock, essentially, a digital time clock. So when they get to their locations, they'll swipe a badge or they'll enter a code so that we will start to recapture some lost time that we think we've had across a lot of sites. So the system itself has been great, and the company that owns it has built ASAP, has built Veritime, this timekeeper piece. It also now owns our application system, AppleTrack. So we're seeing some real efficiencies in all the information and how it gets entered into our data system because of all the technology. So it's actually really fun.
Kim, would there be any financial benefit to some seniority member of the teaching staff that's currently, hip replacement, knee replacement, or whatever the case might be, long-term, sort of quote-unquote disability, so offer them a package rather than?
Probably not a conversation to have in this context. I think there's lots of legal issues around some of those things.
Okay. Okay.
Our challenge becomes a short-term in and out in shortage areas and to try to find qualified candidates, and we cannot. And we have subs, and it's being world languages, and being the sciences, and it really is unfair, I think, to the youngsters, but we're at the mercy of finding folks that are graduates that can be in that classroom, and it's been difficult. So I think we've been trying to talk to folks in terms of scheduling time, in terms of when certain emergencies happen. But it's been a real challenge, particularly this year, to get people in those schools.
Another conversation.
Right, anybody else have a question? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? Okay, let's vote.
That the Board of Education accept the December 2015 operating results analysis grants projects in accordance with 16-19.
Seconded by Holly Robinson. Any questions, discussions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? Passes. 2.
That the Board of Education approve the filing of the general improvements grant application as presented by the superintendent.
Seconded by? No.
What you have before you, the Danbury was awarded as part of the Alliance District's a $1.7 million, what I call a small improvement grant with the state. In partnering with the city, the items you see before you are at least the beginning parts of the application process that we have. There's $816,000 worth of projects. We have $1.7 million to spend. There's a grant due January 29th. Getting information and clarity on what could go in and not go in. I actually had a meeting with them up there yesterday. Just briefly, a lot of some of your city items that you're going to see on here, the hot water expansion tanks at Broadview and DHS, the Haystown sidewalks, those are city items currently that were on capital and we've deferred for years. We're going to get those addressed. The media center carpet replacement at KSP, if folks have been through there, it's orange carpeting, it's throwback, it's seen its days. Morris Street has a similar issue, it was bought in bulk, so we want to get that carpeting out of there as well. Bathroom replacement and repair at First Floor at Rogers Park. As the board knows, those bathrooms have also seen better days. When the building was renovated, the second and third floor bathrooms were done. This is going to get the first floor done, ADA compliant, and architect working in that shop. The South Street stage, it sounds kind of funny, but it's more orange carpeting. It has also seen better days. It was all bought together. I'm really convinced it was a bulk truck we got. Also replacing the underground oil tank removal at Rogers Park and Broadview. These are both items that have been deferred on the city capital list. They're issues that need to become above ground oil tanks and get those addressed. And also replacement upgrades to the front doors at Pembroke for security reasons. We're going to make, we think, a security vestibule similar we did at Rogers Park on a similar design. So this is an $816,000 project. I will come back to the board again probably in early March. The next filing is due, that'll be the additional $900,000 in projects, work with Antonio Idawala and those folks over there to figure out what works for everybody. So I need a motion to approve these so I can file the
The motion was made. Motion was made.
The generator, unless it's a current generator, you can't put a new one. The language with the state is very complicated. You can't, if a playground's been condemned, you can't replace it. I can replace a slide or a swing. The language is very, very tricky in the way it's worded. I can't put a generator in this building because there isn't one currently. If there's stuff that's eligible for state reimbursement, I can't do that. I can't put up walls to make a new classroom at Stately Rough, let's say, because those walls aren't there today.
We originally thought we were able to do some of those things, and as it rolled out, we kept getting more and more clarity on it. That's why Joe went up there to get it face to face.
Well, this is what we're going to do for now. There's a lot of other items out there that need to get addressed and dealt with. I think there's a lot more bathrooms that need to be done. There's tile work at Rogers Park that currently is coming up and needs to be ripped out. Those items need to be.
We have the entranceway at South Street that we want to look at.
Yeah, the South Street entrance needs to be reworked.
Broken tiles and stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of, the question too becomes, once you get into asbestos abatements, the money gets chewed up pretty quick, so we're trying to, plus we work with the city on it too, because obviously, the city owns the buildings, they've got a lot of issues they haven't dealt with in years either, but money's valuable to everybody, so.
All right, the motion was made, was it seconded? Yes.
Second.
It was. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
No abstentions? No abstentions. Okay, moving along.
One with the good news, Joe talked about the magnet school funding.
Yes.
We're somewhat concerned about it. We had this conference call last week. It's all with the backdrop of the economy in Connecticut and the budget woes that they're having. He wouldn't commit to whether or not it would be a cut for this year or just next year. He said everything was on the table, which includes this year, which, we'll see what happens with that.
Like budget now.
Yeah, like budget now, in terms of their funding now. So, as soon as they make a decision, I thought he said something like February 2nd or 3rd.
February 3rd is the next round of cuts in the current state operating budget. They'll go to the legislators, some of which
So we'll have some better idea of what's going on with that. But as you know, Joe, we pointed out, how much a year is that?
$2.2 million.
$2.2 million. And we already have, some of the surrounding schools already cut back on their enrollment to us. So that's how, it was a declining enrollment in the districts surrounding it. I'm sad to talk about this next item, the ROTC program that which is one of our pockets of excellence at the high school, our Air Force Junior ROTC program. I put a memo in front of you that Gary is the principal's going to be sending out. But ostensibly, we lost an officer this year. You have to have a minimum of 100 students to be in the program. It's salary split between the district and the Air Force. The person left us, I think, Kim, was that in September or August? August. And, this, the Army, they posted, they have a whole procedure to do it. I'm afraid to go there, they may draft me. But they're looking to hire someone, they have not been able to find a candidate. Then we're told that Lieutenant Colonel Lucy, who's been with us now, I think it's his 3rd year, is going to be resigning and going into another profession. So we've posted that job. And the feedback we're getting is that they don't know if they could staff it. The problem we have is the commitment on the part of the students. We probably were only going to graduate maybe 15 youngsters out of it. So the other students are in the program and they're going to be selecting electives. And if we wait till last minute, then those electives are going to be closed. So we're kind of a curious situation. The Army, the Air Force will not tell you anything more than, hey, the job is posted. People bid on them, we don't know. So I said to Garrett, we probably will go, if you put, maybe, we set a date, by April 7th. We don't have a instructor, we're not gonna have the ROTC program any longer, which is kind of sad. It provides quite a leadership development for us. So we're doing that we can, but right now we're one short. And we're sort of on probation for that, because we don't have quite 100 students. So we'll see what happens. giving you this now before it goes to parents. That's really sad if we lose that.
Dr. South, I could ask,
Yeah.
any consideration of consolidation of schools?
I asked that question.
Brookfield, Bethel, Newtown's gonna be facing the same dilemma.
I asked them the same thing, there isn't any help, this is allocated by school, and to consolidate, they don't consider that. I talked about Bethel's, they don't have Air Force, they have, and they're pretty well full.
Yeah, they're at capacity.
Yeah, they're at capacity, and they have, their full-time folks, they have no problem. It's not Air Force, it's one of the other ones, I'm not sure.
Maybe.
But Gary was asking questions. Can we share instructors?
Right.
What can we do to keep the program? Can you put us in a hold for a year while they recruit? Or do we have to just say, no more? Once you lose it, they assign that license or that program to another school that's applying for it throughout the country. So we don't want to lose it. We're trying to figure out how to avoid that. But Gary keeps asking that question.
Have we approached a local recruiting office, and we just even stop there and say, hey?
Well, I don't know if there's a local Air Force.
They've got to be a colonel though. They're a retired colonel, and there's some.
Yeah, it's got to be a retired colonel.
Yeah.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying, so where do we find it?
Yeah, they do. I've talked with their HR person several times, and they do all of the recruiting, and they look for basically retired. That's who they put it back to, the retired folks to their standards, and they've just had no idea. That's how we found John. Yeah. And so then they would give us a list of candidates, and we would decide if there was one that we really liked, but there hasn't been any candidates.
We just posted the lieutenant colonel. Let's see what happens. We keep working. It's kind of sad. I added 2 items for you. T-Val with the CEA and central registration.
Yeah, so this is actually really exciting. This is like 5 months of work now, coming to a grinding halt. We are going to open the centralized registration center at the Osborne Street location for full service on Monday. We have these beautiful brochures that are going to go out across the city. They're in multiple languages, and they tell families what they need to bring in order to register.
No, because
great.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're sorry.
So, expressions of joy are well received. Okay. So, what we've done is we have created a center. We have basically taken the work of the ESL Center, which was really well organized, and we've expanded it. So, ESL kids will still do as they've always done. Those families will call the ESL Center to schedule an appointment because those students need to have testing done. Everybody else, for general registration, or anyone who is new to Danbury, so from kindergarten all the way up, you can come Monday, Wednesday, Friday at any point between, I think it's 8 and 3:30. You come with your documents if you have them. So you bring everything that's required for registration, and you will be greeted by a registrar. We've just put a series of people through 2 days of training, and those folks will look at things like birth certificate and residency documents, and then we'll go through all of the registration paperwork with the families, with the guardian who's there. We also have just gotten ready to go live on a new link to a new registration-only page. So when you go to the Danbury website on Monday, either tomorrow or Monday, you can click on a button which is yellow and is branded on everything we have. It says Danbury Student Registration. Click here, and you will go to a registration page, which is broken out by grade level. It tells you all sorts of things. If you live on what street, what school you would go to, some kindergarten preparation materials. If you want to go to that link, you can print off all the registration documents and complete them at home and bring them into the registration center if you like. They are in multiple languages. Once you come into the center, you'll go through all the paperwork. You'll receive some color-coded envelopes back. If you have something missing, you'll be sent away with a folder that says exactly what you need before you can come back again. And if you have all of your documents, the registrar will then input you into Power School. So your student will be in Power School and live at that moment. All the building secretaries will know probably every couple of days which students have been registered. The CUNE file will be created right there with the original documents, birth certificate scanned in, and then travel over to the individual schools so that secretaries and principals can start building their classes. They can do kindergarten screening, they can do all of those things well in advance. So we're not gonna be in this scramble, hopefully in this scramble in the summer. The PR effort starts now, so these brochures are going out across the city. You'll also see blue, the same color blue, bright blue signs on the lawns of all the schools saying kindergarten registration is now open. Backpack letters are going home with all the elementary schools, have them templated so they all look the same. Those will go out to families who have 4-year-old students that are going to register for kindergarten for the following year. All of that information will go home, and the center will be staffed, as I said, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. As need requires, we'll add in some evening hours, we'll add in some alternate days, maybe a Saturday or on location, and we'll see how we go. We registered about, 900 kindergarten kids last year. There was a task force that I chaired to get to this process 4 or 5 months later, and we could never have done it with all of the people that were involved in the task force. Gina Jasmine, our data person, has done yeoman's work so that all of our documents have been reviewed, they've been revised, they've linked to information we need in Power School. So we feel like this will be one-stop shopping for parents. They'll be able to get free and reduced lunch information, they'll be able to get playgroup information, ELP service information, ESL center information, every information on custody insurance, all in one location. One-stop shopping for them, and then when they leave, a virtual student will have been created with a bridge to their home school. So it's a really exciting process. I'm sure there are going to be some big bumps along the way, but the people that are involved in it are all locked on and ready to go, and we'll start next week.
Comes the information that you disseminated to the public.
So brochures, I'm sorry?
Will it be mailed out?
No, we're going to distribute them to daycare centers, child care centers, the library, to
Town clerk's office.
Town clerk's office. The lawn signs are going out to announce the opening of kindergarten registration. This is for any student that's new to Danbury, though, so K through high school. And the backpack letters are going to go home to the families.
Is this something that Robin can do for us, being his?
She has.
I just sent Ann Mead, who's done a ton of work on this, just finalized the press release, so that should go out in the next day, I would say.
Tonight, the word is not out because they're coming in droves for their birth certificates.
Good, good.
Droves.
The goal is really, we need to get everybody entered in early, so that, at E.D. Thomas did have a small group that they revamped the kindergarten assessment instrument, so it's the same all around the city now. So kindergarten teachers want to get in and see these kids early so they can start placing them in classes. Bus routes, poor Mel, in August, she was building some routes, so we're gonna try to really get this done a lot earlier, and really harness the power of technology that we have. But I can't, the list is real long of people that have been involved, from nursing staff to sites and facilities to principals and secretaries, so it's really been.
Did a great job with this thing. It's not easy, there's a lot of, it was decentralized, the buildings like having their little packets in there, but we had a lot of inconsistency, people accepting different form of documentations, inoculations that were, nurse was not there, there'll be a nurse at the center. We're gonna be open during the summer so families can come in. And not only that, as we collect the data, we use that to apply for grants. And quite frankly, there have been years where the data was dirty and we did not get grants. And by the middle of the year, we figured out we could have gotten that grant. So we kind of coalesced it all together. It should give us some resources. She reallocated some of the secretaries in the district. We expanded one secretary during the summer. We think overall, it'll be more effective. Good job.
And that's really cool.
Good job. You're going to hear a lot, you've been reading about the reauthorization, Every Student Succeeding Act. One of the big things I mentioned to you the last week, the feds are going to give up their authority, but not the strings. Okay? They're going to permit states to say, this is the way we want to operationalize those strings that you're putting in place. One of them is the testing assessment. As I said last week, we need to hit 95%. We stand to lose a tiny sum of money in teachers. That's one. The other thing that we're going to have to talk about is how the teacher evaluation system. And the state will have some autonomy to make some decisions. The original idea was that it be tied to student achievement as defined by the SBAC testing, state testing. Well, that got taken off the table with the state waivers, and that's what we want. We want ability to look at multiple portfolios. The CEA has put out a publication, what they think it ought to look like. There's a peak committee that meets by legislative act, and the CEA and other organizations are part of it. They'll be looking at a lot of options. My guess there'll be, in August, when our waiver comes up, we will have the ability to probably define a different system. Whether or not they split, you know how we do it now. We have 50% of the 45% is on teacher observation, 45% on what we call student objectives. They're looking at how they can redefine those calculus when you come up with a score for a teacher. So we're going to be able to work on that. So you're going to read a lot more in the literature. We have a TVAL committee that's meeting when?
February 4th.
We're going to start looking at options that we're going to dream a little bit. How do we get out of what this thing has put us in and make it more professional dialogue and not just a compliance operational? And that's where we're at with it. I think the teachers are anxious to get there, and we are as well. But what you're reading in the paper right now, it's not the position of the state. It's just the CEA's position and maybe the principal's organization or the superintendent's group. That's going to have to be put together and recommended to the state legislators, and they're the ones that will approve it. And I'll keep you updated with that. I don't have anything else, but I'd like to go to information because if you go to information, next page, I was wrong at the last meeting when we interpreted the sibling policy. It is not 2 years out. It starts with next year's group that comes in. So the youngsters that are in this year are grandfathered in. Then next January, it will, if it stays in place, then those youngsters will come under that policy. So I did put it in here along with the minutes from that meeting for your information.
Could you clarify that to the new board members, if you don't mind, Dr. Sell?
The board last year was approached by some folks and began discussing the open admission to the magnet school by more families than were there. And the study showed with the sibling preference, I forget how many, 200 families or somewhere that impacted. It limited the number of seats that would be available after the siblings filled the seats. We spent some time talking about that, and the board came down with a decision for the families in Danbury anyway, that sibling preference will no longer exist. That if your brother or sister got in, starting next January, then your brother or sister doesn't have a preference, they'd go in the open lottery along with everybody else. However, when they did that, the non-participating districts, those that do not live in Danbury, because of the obvious reasons of participation, the sibling preference limitations was not given to them. So if you live in Brookfield, or if you live in New Milford, and you have a sibling and you go to our school, you have that ability for sibling preference. But if you live in Danbury, you do not. It's basically what happened. And you had some appeals, I know, at the last meeting, but it does apply starting next January. So, your pleasure.
Right. Thank you.
It's in here, if you want to read it, it's on
It's right on
1620.
1620.
Yeah.
All right. Moving along, I don't have a report. I'm going to ask anybody, does anyone here, has anyone attended anything or done anything that they would like to report? Yes, Pat?
Yes, I went to I attended the science fair at the Westside Middle School this morning. This was excellent. It was tremendous projects. Spent about an hour and a half there. Wasn't judging, just went around and talked to a lot of the kids. It was really well done. And the other thing, I received a letter which I brought up before from Moore Street School, just saying that on March 2nd is Read Across America Day, or Dr. Seuss Day. And they asked me to bring that up to everybody in case, I'm sure as we brought up earlier, that the schools will be pushing for people, but they're looking for people to, board members or whatever, to read from 8:30 to 11 or 12:15 to 2 on March
you're available at all, try to keep that time open. It's really rewarding for you. I mean, it's great for the kids, but it's the best thing to do, so it is. I know not everybody's available during those times, but some of us can rearrange our schedules for that, so that's the March 2nd, all right? Does anybody else have anything? Oh,
Last Wednesday, we came to the center.
right. Yes, that wasn't there, yes.
And Nan's here at Say.
Yes.
In Danbury, and they celebrated 5 years.
Mhm.
Is that correct, Nan?
5.5.
It was attended by Joe and Dr. Sal and
But not Eileen.
Eileen. It's been an impressive growth, by the way, what Andy has done since there. It's been amazing. And I'm honored to be part of the board. Great evening and very impressive growth in that area.
Yes. And I don't know if you've gotten a notice from, I don't know who they put you on yet, I didn't see your name on it, but this coming Monday, the 2nd, is the board meeting for the stand together and make a difference. Right, on the whole meeting. Right, and I told the guy to go because I was like, this is an expulsion. Mrs. Cooper, or something?
Two things, Madam Chairman. Last night I attended a concert at Kingston School for the fourth grade. It was absolutely beautiful. It was well done. They started on time and they ended on time. All dragged out a bit. And it was just a very good environment for the children. And the children really, I didn't get the gentleman's name that played the guitar. Whoever the music person is over at King Street, and it was just beautiful. And what really ended it was, somebody chose the kids to do their little number that they are excited about. So they were a part of the selection. And I can't think of the game because I'm sort of old. The dance that they were doing was either the nay-nay or the they really enjoyed it. And it was just fun to see how the kids just really laughed and enjoyed
Was it the intermediate or the primary?
it. It was in the
Intermediate. Just to remind the board, that's the group that we integrated. Remember that? 4 years ago, that was a real concern of ours, to make sure, and I agree with Gladys, with the Mill Ridge, right, the kids, it's been seamless, they've done a nice job, the teachers and parents, and all of together, so they need to be commended.
And then lastly, I always like to thank Mr. Adams from Danbury High School, who's the band director, and Dr. Sam for always working with me. And I think it's very important, again, to be a part of the community and to have the children from Danbury High School come up, the entire band, on Dr. Martin Luther King Day. I'm part of this program that we put on at my church. And they have been coming for the last 2 years. And he brought a whole busload of kids up there last Monday, the jazz band, and they performed absolutely beautiful. And my congregation and my people are just excited about having them every year. So this will be a third year, and we're looking forward to having them next year. But anyway, I just enjoyed the young people acting beautifully. They conduct themselves well. They mingle and socialize. And I said to them, this is what we should be about because I'm part of the community relations committee on the board. And I said, I'm just happy to have you here. And I want to thank Dr. Sam for always really doing what he needs to do as superintendent to make sure that those young people got their own time and enjoyed themselves.
And I'm sure Dr. Sal participated in that hands-on. All right, I'm sorry.
The bus company donated. That was nice of them, they donated.
Nice of them to come.
And one last thing.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Exhibit, we need to pull exhibit 1612, and I wasn't paying attention when we accepted the minutes, because I was at that Sites and Facility Committee. I did not take the minutes. And there seem to be a lot of people that were there that's not on this. I don't know who did the minutes, I can't remember. So I would have to go back. Exhibit 16. Okay.
We'll figure it out.
That needs to be cool.
Okay. Already, there's, already, anybody else? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
At 8:30, just want everyone to know this is okay. Richard and Richard votes.
Early tonight. See you tomorrow, right? Yeah.
I gave you a call.
I know.
When was it open again?
Yeah, it was demolished.